Hello, Chattanooga. You're listening to AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Clutch with Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me today, making me just a small part of your day. You know that I appreciate each and every one of you. I'm back. I was on vacation. It was great. I had a fun time in Florida where it rained the entire weekend. And I thought, well, I left Chattanooga in the sunshine. I might come back to some warmth. Nope, it's raining here too. So I issue my warning that I issue every day that I come on this show and it's raining, which is to say drive safely, don't be reckless, don't be stupid. I like you all, be alive. So there's that. Lots of news to get into today. The news that Matthew Stafford is now the highest paid quarterback in the history of football. Well, actually, the highest paid player, which makes sense, right? The highest paid quarterback is typically the highest paid player. The Browns released Joe Hayden. But before we get into all of those things, I want to talk very quickly about Mayweather-McGregor because I was talking about that fight and to the buildup of that fight the entire way through that fight up until to it. And the message that I was pounding to you was do not watch this fight. The fight is going to be terrible. The fight's going to be awful. The fight's going to be bad. All of the things that we are being told about this fight is just a way for both of these guys to make money off of you. This is not going to be something where there's a surprise ending, where somehow Conor McGregor has a shot at winning this fight. I also said many times that Conor McGregor wasn't going to touch Floyd Mayweather. Now, a couple of things did surprise me. One being that Conor McGregor did, in fact, touch Floyd Mayweather a few times in the first 3 to 4 rounds of that fight. Now, that is not really a purpose of anything involving Conor McGregor. None whatsoever. Okay, you could try and tell me that Conor McGregor did a lot of valiant things in that fight. Nothing that Conor McGregor did there allowed him to touch Floyd Mayweather. To me, the most is that Floyd Mayweather did the thing that he said he was going to do to sell this fight, and I didn't believe that he was ever going to do it, which is that Floyd advanced as the aggressor in the fight, and as a result, took more hits than he usually takes, and the reason being, and this should be obvious to everyone, he was not afraid of Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor landed some clean shots on Floyd. Conor McGregor hit Floyd with an uppercut. Conor McGregor controlled the ring for much of the first 4 rounds of that fight in terms of just walking Floyd down at different points. Now, there's something to be noticed there, right? One, the shots landed on Floyd are shots that Conor landed on Floyd while Floyd was being the aggressor of the fight. Fighting in a style that Floyd does not fight in ever, okay? Because if Floyd actually thought you could knock him out, he wouldn't do that. Floyd is a guy that doesn't take risks. He does not take risks. He does not take risks, okay? And I mean in every stage of his life. Floyd would not have even taken this fight if there was a chance that he could lose the fight. Floyd doesn't take any fight if there's a chance that he could lose the fight, right? Like, there's a reason why Floyd Mayweather waited until Manny Pacquiao was past his prime. Because if he fought Pacquiao in his prime, look, I'm not saying Pacquiao wins because that defense of Floyd's is incredible. But what I am saying is, that's a better fight. The Pacquiao fight came 3 years, 4 years too late. I'm saying the reason why Floyd fought De La Hoya past his prime, can't beat him. Prime De La Hoya, and I'm not saying Prime De La Hoya beats Prime Floyd, but what I am saying is that over the hill, De La Hoya has no chance. I'm not saying Prime Pacquiao beats Prime Floyd. I'm saying over the hill, Pacquiao has no chance. Floyd wouldn't have taken this fight after not fighting for 2 years at the age of 40 years old if there was even a dream that he had that he could lose this fight. If there was even a dream. And the reason why he thought that he was comfortable being the aggressor is there wasn't even a dream that Conor could knock him out, right? Conor was so interested in rabbit punching and all of that stuff. I don't think he threw shots that generated enough power. I don't think he's used to throwing enough shots that generate that kind of power. I understand the knockout ability that he has, but that's not hard enough to knock out a guy who's used to taking the heaviest shots of different boxers. Okay? It is not enough to knock out a guy who has taken the heaviest shots from Canelo Alvarez and taken the heaviest shots from Marcos Maidana and kept on walking. Okay? I mean, this is not enough. Conor does not have enough. He does not punch harder than those guys. So the fight went 10 rounds, which to me, I didn't know if it was going to even be a knockout. I'm actually one of those people. I thought it could have just went the distance, but that Conor would look incredibly bad and incredibly foolish throughout the fight. Conor looked more valiant throughout the fight because Floyd allowed him to. And we have all been manipulated by Floyd Mayweather through this entire process. And I'm wondering how many of you still have not realized that you've been manipulated, right? I'm watching weak McGregor punches in the first round. Like, he was the more active fighter, that's for sure. That's why he was ahead on the scorecard. And I don't think that anybody had that happening. But if you want to tell me that those punches did any damage, if any of those punches had a real chance of taking out Floyd Mayweather, you're delusional, man. You're crazy, man. No way. No way. None of those punches were, I mean, I didn't watch the first 3 rounds live, unfortunately, right? Because as I told you, this fight was a sucker fight. I was not going to be paid for this fight to watch this fight. But then I saw that Floyd was losing the first 3 rounds on Twitter. I was following on Twitter, and people were posting the highlights of Conor McGregor and teeing off. And I say teeing off in quotes because, I mean, again, it was never any point where it looked scary for Floyd. So I jumped in on the fight. I pulled up a stream on my phone and watched the fight. And by the time I jumped in, it was after the 4th round, and Conor was already gassed. So the part that I watched was the part of the fight where Floyd got more confident and started walking up to Conor McGregor and teeing off on him. And Floyd could have put Conor away at any point. Floyd Mayweather tried to bet on himself to have the fight over in the 10th round. Okay. Like, I mean, you are literally being manipulated by a master manipulator. He has been manipulating everyone his entire career. That the man has gotten people to watch fights because they hate him. Because they hate him. Right? Like, you don't want to be well liked in that sport. Same thing for working in the media, right? Like, think of all the most famous media people that you know. Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity. You go to sports, you see Colin Cowherd and Dan Le Batard, and all of those guys are divisive. All of those guys are divisive. They're not well-liked by everybody. Divisive is better than well-liked. And in that sport, it's the same thing. Divisive is better than well-liked. Floyd Mayweather is divisive, and Floyd has been manipulating that to be his image his entire career. And you've been walking into all of them. And if you walked into this fight and walked away fully happy and satisfied, understand it's because Floyd wanted you to. That Floyd walked away with $350 million. Okay? He had $100 million just for showing up to the fight, even if he had lost. Right? That's $100 mil either way. That's $100 mil either way. When a guy can do that to you and make you feel happy that you spent the money and leave you feeling like you would spend the money again on a fight that honestly wasn't a great fight. You had lower expectations than you should have had. But you walked away happy that you gave him $350 million. Happy. He conned you, he duped you, he took your money, and you were glad to give it. And I heard some people say they would give it again. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. My other question about this fight, because obviously I don't believe for a second that Conor McGregor had a chance in that fight. And I know I don't believe, by the way, that the referee stepped in too soon to stop that fight. Conor was against the ropes and he was holding onto the ropes. And I don't know if you've ever seen somebody die in a boxing ring. That's how people die in a boxing ring, right? Like, they're unconscious against the ropes or they're unconscious in the corner and they just can't fall over, right? They are just getting hammered with punches and they just don't have the opportunity to fall to the mat. That's how people die in a boxing ring. So no, I thought the referee made the right decision because Conor was hanging onto the ropes. He had no intention of falling over. He was never going to fall down to the mat. You could hang onto those ropes and be very, very unconscious. And the brain damage would be terrible. I thought the referee made the right decision there. But the other question I have about this fight is, does Conor McGregor have a future in boxing? Now, I don't think that Conor McGregor has an extensive future in boxing, right? Like, not at all. There is no other boxer closer to Conor's age that he could beat. Okay, we're talking about Floyd, who's 40. We're talking about Floyd, who hasn't boxed in 2 years. And Floyd picked the round he wanted to take Conor out in, right? Like, bet that round on himself in advance. He was only allowed to bet $87,000 because they didn't want any funny business with the fight, which is weird because he made $350 million. Like, why would you pull funny business on a fight where you're making $350 million? But all right. So they allowed him to bet $87,000 on himself. And he picked the round that he was going to take out Conor in. That, to me, is a little bit insane. He picked the round. He's 40. He's been out of work for 2 years. If Floyd Mayweather, who has never been known for offense, who is 40 years old and out of boxing for 2 years, if he can pick the round, what can these other cats do? Right? What can these younger guys do who fight more at Conor McGregor's weight, right? Like, because Conor McGregor's more of a middleweight type dude, guy walking around. Conor McGregor showed up to that fight at 170, right? Like, they weighed him in. Conor, I think, was below 153 at the weigh-in, and after the weigh-in, ballooned back up to 170 pounds. So not only that, not only was all of these things stacked against Floyd, but also Conor McGregor was the bigger fighter by a lot. By a lot. If Conor McGregor fights a guy his own weight in boxing, that puts him in the Canelo Alvarez, Gennady Golovkin category, that Triple G category. And both of those guys, who are going to be fighting, by the way, later in September, both of those guys would absolutely murder Conor McGregor in a ring. Like, he might actually die. That's not safe at all. That's not safe at all. At all, okay? That a guy that weighed 20 pounds less than you, who is roughly 13 or 14 years older than you, who has not boxed in 2 years, picked the round in which he wanted to take you out. He chose it. And we know this because he bet on himself. He chose the round in which he wanted to knock you out and then knocked you out in it. If that guy can do that to you, and I will say that Floyd's one of the greatest boxers of all time, if that guy can do that to you, none of these other guys who are younger, who are active, none of these other guys are going to let you escape. Now, does Conor have a short-term boxing career? Yeah. I think that Conor can milk the result of this fight for 1 or 2 more fights. I think he can get 1 or 2 more fights out of the boxing world, which will give him still more money than anything he can make at the UFC. And I honestly do not think that Conor McGregor goes back to the UFC. I don't. He should go back. I think that that's the sport where they need him the most. And look, we talked about this last week. My brother and I, my brother was here for the week, and so I just kept bringing him on the show, much to the chagrin possibly of all of you. But I kept bringing him back on the show because, you know, my brother is a big UFC guy. My brother is a big NBA guy. We just had so much NBA trade news happen last week that it was worth bringing him on. And he was on, and we were talking about the UFC star problem. The John Jones popped for performance-enhancing drugs. You've got Conor McGregor trying to dabble in the world of boxing. Name a star in the UFC. When before we could name a few. When before we could name John Jones. And maybe not all of you are UFC guys. Like, I'm not even a UFC guy, but I can briefly name some of the guys that I thought were great. Like Lyoto Machida was in there. Anderson Silva, Wanderlei Silva, Brock Lesnar had a good run. All of those things. So when I look at it, I think it's fairly interesting, and I do think it is fairly fascinating that, yeah, all of those guys were once stars in the UFC. The UFC doesn't have stars anymore. And Dana White, who got the UFC a little bit of a payday and got his chance to be a boxing promoter because Dana White grew up a boxing guy, Dana White may have just walked the last star that the UFC has out the door. Because I'm Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor seems to care about his family. Conor McGregor seems to not really want to be fighting anymore. And for the little amount of money that you make in the UFC, I just don't think that Conor revels in all of that as much. I think Conor McGregor can milk this for 2 or more fights and then just get out of the fight game entirely. Right? Like, retire before you're 30. Conor McGregor can get 2 boxing matches in before we realize, like, Conor McGregor does not have a chance against any of these real dudes. Against any of these younger than Floyd guys. I do think that. And if that's what Conor's looking for, he can certainly get it. But does he have a long-term boxing career in front of him as a result of this? No. No. Was the result surprising that Conor McGregor was able to last in that fight as long as he lasted in that fight? Yeah, it was surprising. But it's also surprising Floyd's approach to that fight. Both of those things. And I'm not trying to stand here and defend Floyd Mayweather, which I feel like I have been forced to do for the greater part of the last year. And I'm glad this is finally over. I am glad this is finally over. But yeah, I pulled up the stream on my phone and checked in around the time when Floyd started walking people down, walking Conor down. And yeah, Conor didn't have any answers once he gassed. And I don't know what the deal is with the cardio with Conor McGregor, because I watched all the pre-fight stuff and Conor McGregor was cycling out in the desert and all of this stuff. And it's like, how is it that you can do all of that? 28 minutes of fighting and you're done? I understand you're not used to it in an octagon because those fights are typically shorter anyway, and the number of different ways in which you can take a person out. I get it, but man, when Conor McGregor was done, he was done. Clutch with Keon Rose and AM 1240 at 92.7 FM. Jim McElwain suspends 10 players for the season opener against Michigan, including running back Jordan Scarlett and wide receiver Antonio Callaway. And people have been commenting on this in a way that I feel is fairly uneducated. Like, oh no, Jim McElwain is suspending all of these guys so that he can have some kind of excuse when Florida loses to Michigan. And I am concerned that you have suspended 10 players, because Jim McElwain has talked about the idea and the possibility of starting all 3 quarterbacks. And I'm like, dude, you might have to start all 3 at once. Who else is left? Who else is left on your roster to play once you have suspended 10 dudes? That seems unwise. Once you have suspended 10 guys, who else is left? Yo. But I don't think he's doing this for the excuses of it. Like, when you look at the things that guys have been suspended for, you've got some multiple offenders of the school conduct policy. You've got some guys involved in fraud. Remember, Antonio Callaway was one of 4 players suspended with players trying to pretend to lose their the credit cards that they are given with their school funds on it, and then try and hustle the school out of more funds by having both credit cards, both the new one and the one that they claim that they lost. And that's mild credit card fraud. I think you've got to suspend guys for stuff like that. I think there have been legitimate things that Jim McElwain has had to suspend his players for. Like, he can't just play them. But I think this is where we've gotten to in college football. We've gotten to the point in college football where when a player is actually suspended for doing something wrong, that idea is shocking to us. We are shocked by the idea that a guy could be suspended for doing something wrong when he could legitimately help the team win. And so when you have 10 guys who have legitimately done something worth being suspended over, no one would typically do that. Like, no one would actually suspend 10 guys, right? Not unless they got into some kind of altercation. But the problem with it is that most of us are not even sure what it is that these players have done, right? We just know they've been suspended. We just know 10 guys have been suspended for a very important season opener against a big-time opponent and a non-conference opponent. And a lot of times these playoff spots are open, and the non-conference stuff could push you over the edge. And since Florida plays in the SEC East, the conference stuff is not going to be strong enough, I think, to give them a boost. They're going to have to play Michigan, and I think they're going to have to beat Michigan if they want to say, hey, let's parlay an SEC East victory into some kind of college football playoff spot. I think they're going to have to do that kind of thing. And we are not used to players being suspended on a stage that big, in a situation that big, when we're not entirely certain what it is that everybody's done, which I think is awful. We should suspend guys who break rules. Watch with Keon Rose on AM 1240, 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's news now.
At the racetrack gas station on Battlefield Parkway in Ringgold, police say that a man burst in, ordered everyone out. He had a gun and then began taking money out of the cash register and barricaded himself inside the building. Bad news for the suspect, however. He was right near a SWAT team training area. They responded to the gas station immediately. After about an hour and a half of a standoff, the suspect came out of the gas station with his hands up and with no gun. The police say he does face a robbery charge. County Mayor Jim Coppinger made an announcement on the county courthouse steps on 10:30 a.m. that taxes would be going up in Chattanooga. The county will be raising property taxes to bring in funding for schools, a new sewage treatment plant, and an expanded workhouse. County Mayor Jim Coppinger says the time is now. A public hearing will be Wednesday, September the 6th at 8:30 a.m. at the County Commission meeting room at the County Courthouse. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's Fast Forecast now. 72 degrees in Chattanooga as we finish up our workday. 77 is a high today and 68 the low. Use caution on your drive home as rain is expected to continue all through our day into tomorrow, with thunderstorms starting up tomorrow, continuing into Friday, with 77 for the high on Friday, 62 for the low. For our weekend, things are going to clear up quite a bit with temperatures getting back into the 80s. That's your Fast Forecast now.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Hi, this is Chrissy.
And this is Summer
of Summer Cares. There are too many homeless veterans in Chattanooga. Please help us in our Shoebox for Veterans campaign. You can fill a shoebox with hand warmers, hand sanitizers, hand wipes, cough drops, razors, shaving cream, toothbrush, toothpaste, soap, shampoo, deodorant, snacks, socks, gloves, and even a small blanket.
And make sure you drop your shoeboxes or your shoebox items off at Nooga Radio Studio on Hickson Pike across from Bojangles below Goss Insurance or Alpine Crest Elementary School.
Please join us at the Community Kitchen in Chattanooga on November 10th from 11 to 12:30 and help us distribute these care packages to the homeless veterans of Chattanooga. No veteran should ever go homeless.
Hi, this is Eric Pelton. Taxes, accounting, business advice. I've got a neat brochure, 12 ways to improve your business profits. Come on by for a free consultation and we'll give you a copy. E.J. Pelton Company, 332-3339.
When my brother and I opened our first Jets Pizza, we believed if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300 plus stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and one topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jets.
When you shop online for a weapon, you avoid the sales tax. But now you can buy local at Shooter Supply, and you'll do just as well, if not better. Here's how. 10% off of ammo and accessories, or 20% off of the handgun permit class, or you can get 20% off the range membership. You deduct the taxes online, and at Shooters, you do even better. And let Shooter's consignment program turn that rifle into cold, hard cash. Shooter Supply, Hickson. Shooters Supply, Hickson.
I have the best steak selection in town. The name of the business is Don's Meat Shop, and I'm Donnie Raines. Just ask for Donnie. I make over 20 different types of sausages. Most of them are great for grilling. We have the best selection, best quality. We have the hard-to-find items. Don's Meat Shop.
This is Thomas DeMoss with Keller Williams Realty. I am a realtor in Chattanooga. We list and sell homes, work with buyers, work with home sellers. I have been involved in real estate for over 10 years. My background is as a real estate investor. That is what I bring to the table, is that real estate investor realtor mindset. My job is to help you sell your house for the most money, employing the best marketing strategy and walking you through what can be a rather stressful process. So we are encouraging people who are on the fence or even thought about selling their house to give us a call. There's no obligation. We're just here to kind of have a conversation, let people know what the process is like, what the market is like, what values they can expect to receive. We work with buyers as well. I also have a buyer's agent that works exclusively with my buyers because we want to give our clients as much attention as we can. My cell phone number is 423-364-0028. Our website is northriverpropertygroup.com. That's northriverpropertygroup.com. We'd love for you guys to call us.
Hi, I'm David Crockett, and I'm here with David Tulis, and we're having a little discussion over who's the number one Nooga centrist. If you want to keep up with free market ideas, then read Nooganomics.com. David Tulis, the blogger with the biggest pen.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree. Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM, and 95.3 HD4. News, talk, sports. Nooga Radio.
You're listening to AM 1240, 92.7 FM. Plus Keon Rose. Let's jump over to college football, Canadian football story. And I don't know if I've ever actually done a Canadian football story on the show, in large part because I do not watch Canadian football. But when something involves Art Browse, you better believe that I am on that story like the white on rice on a paper plate, in a paper cup, a glass of milk in a snowstorm. I am on it. You understand? Because I thought, and maybe it's just me, maybe I am the one person who was truly offended by everything that happened with Art Browse at Baylor, right? Like just every facet of that situation disturbed and disgusted me in a way that I am not okay with. I found it to be truly perturbing. And I think that Art Browse should be excommunicated from the game of football. Right? There are people who believe in second chances. I believe in second chances too. I also don't believe that everything warrants a second chance. You don't get second chances on everything. There are just some things that are too egregious for anybody to have a second chance. Right? Especially when it's something that doesn't happen once. Especially when it's something that's not a one-time incident, right? Like, if it's an ongoing thing, to me, you're less likely to wind up with a second chance. If you make a mistake, second chance, definitely in order. If you make one continuous mistake, then we have to start looking into the details of, were you ignorant? What did you know? When did you know it? All of those things, I think, are hugely, hugely important. The context is big. I think we have enough context on what it is that Art Browse did and did not do at Baylor University with regards to players basically creating a rape culture on campus, and Art Browse not just looking the other way, but actively protecting those players so that they could continue to play football games, silencing victims and things of that nature, which is against the law. So either Art Browse broke the law or Art Browse helped people to break the law, which in my mind is still just as bad. Art Browse needs to be excommunicated from the game of football. And before you say, well, this is a non-football thing, right? Art Browse, and I'll give you the background of this story before I jump too far into it, but Art Browse was hired by a Canadian Football League team, right? The Hamilton Tiger Cats. He was hired by that team to be the head coach because, you know, football coaches are always at a high premium, and I will give Art Browse respect as far as being a football coach. The Art Browse, to me, is one of the top football minds in America. Okay? He is a brilliant producer of offense. And as a fan of football, I would like to see Art Browse coach again. As a fan of football, as a fan of human beings, and a fan of life itself, Art Briles should not be allowed anywhere near a football field, right? But the Hamilton Tiger Cats hired Art Briles, and the backlash for them hiring Art Briles was so strong that they immediately regretted it and then released him, right? Like, they didn't even really hire him. Art Briles did not get to coach. He was the head coach of the Hamilton Tiger Cats for what, 2 whole days? For 2 whole days? And they released him because the backlash was so strong. And I'm like, good. Art Briles is only 10 months removed from a case in which he allowed rape to run rampant on a college campus in the name of football. 10 months is not enough time. Like, if you are one of those people that believes that Art Briles deserves a second chance, I'm not. But if you are, I understand where you're coming from. But even you have to acknowledge that not even a year is not enough time for what it is that guy did. It isn't. And before you go, okay, but he was going to be coaching professionals, right? Not amateurs, professionals. What difference does it make? We have not allowed people making poor non-football decisions, poor off-the-field decisions, to stop them from getting jobs before. Like Michael Vick and dogfighting, Andy Reid decided to make Michael Vick his reclamation project. But I promise you this, if Andy Reid did not decide to take Michael Vick on board, Michael Vick was not about to play for another NFL team. Right? And Michael Vick is a guy that has shown remorse. Art Briles has not shown remorse. Art Briles is still suing Baylor University for them defaming his name, even though we have the text messages that he sent trying to cover up these crimes. Art Briles is not sorry for what he did. In fact, Art Briles is even barely sorry he got caught, which to me is like the minimum. Right? I'm not a fan of, I'm not sorry for what I did, I'm sorry I got caught guy. But at least I'm sorry I got caught guy is showing some modicum of remorse. Art Briles isn't showing any. He's not taunting you. He's not flaunting it in your face, but he's not sorry either. He's not sorry either. So no, 10 months removed from that and no remorse, no, you don't get to coach again. Absolutely not. Ray Rice apologized, couldn't get a job. Michael Vick apologized, and were it not for Andy Reid, wouldn't have had a job. Would not have had a job. Colin Kaepernick protested during the national anthem, still can't find a job. To be clear, Colin Kaepernick committed 0 crimes. Art Briles possibly committed several. Possibly committed several. If Kaepernick cannot find a job for simply taking a social stance in a controversial way, Art Briles, who allowed rape to run wild on a college football campus, working in conjunction with campus police and the campus chancellor to cover up crimes, Art Briles shouldn't have a job either, and it should be longer before Art Briles works than before Kaepernick works. I would say never again. I would say never again. My thing is the Hamilton Tiger Cats, the owner of the team, released Art Briles and said that he didn't realize that the backlash for that was going to be as strong. And I'm like, how is that not obvious? What? You thought because you were in Canada, we were just going to stop caring about rape? Nope. It's still offensive, the idea of Art Briles coaching football anywhere. If Art Briles coached football in Australia, if he coached football in South Africa, if he coached football in Hong Kong, if he coached football in Saudi Arabia, it would still be offensive, the idea of Art Briles coaching football ever again. Because we like to say this with players, and I don't know that we've said this with coaches very often, but it's just as true for coaches, players, owners, managers, general managers, presidents of football operation, whomever. It's true regardless of who it is. Football is a privilege, not a right. Art Briles is not owed football just because he's good at it. He's not owed football merely because he's good at football. Right? And again, I'll give Art Briles his due respect. He has got one of the greatest football minds on the planet Earth. And it does not matter because he allowed rape to happen and does not appear to be sorry. Won't apologize for it. And is blaming the university for everything that happened. And yes, the university is complicit, but the university has made changes. The university has apologized. Art Briles has not. So I don't know what to tell you on that one. I'm not entirely certain what to tell you on that. But if Art Briles gets to coach football again, it'll be too soon. That I can tell you. Right? Like, you say morality shouldn't be enforced by those things, but yes. And here's the thing, that the people who are angry enough to keep Colin Kaepernick from getting a job are being racist. Because, like, all the people that I know that were not cool with Colin Kaepernick's protest, all those people don't wish that he never finds a job. They just weren't cool with his protest. They just didn't like it. They just thought he's either his delivery of the system was dumb. Lots of other opinions. Not liking Colin Kaepernick and not liking his stance does not make you a racist. If you are actively rooting against the idea of Colin Kaepernick getting a job, you might be, though. You might be. But I like to believe that with the Art Briles situation, we are all against rape. I'd like to believe that, yeah. I think we're all in unison on Art. Now, some people believe he deserves a second chance. Look, I am not one of those people, okay? I have heard it on the talk shows, on the other talk shows. Yeah, Art Briles should get a second chance. Not now. It's definitely too soon for now. I think ever is too soon. But 10 months is definitely too soon. Can we agree on that? I think we can agree on that. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. So Maria Sharapova returned. She played in the U.S. Open this weekend. She returned. She upset the number 2 tennis player in the world after being banned for performance-enhancing drug from the Tennis Federation. And she had a special moment, right? She beats the number 2 player in the world. It's a huge upset because she hasn't played in years. She collapses on the ground crying. She gets a special moment from ESPN, you know, the interview with her and how long has the journey been and all, you know, all the fluff stuff that people ask you when they ask you stuff on ESPN, all of that good stuff, right? And she had a special moment, and I think some people were kind of taken aback at the idea that, wow, does Maria Sharapova deserve the special moment that she got? Because Maria Sharapova, the reason why she was banned was for taking performance-enhancing drugs. And she took performance-enhancing drugs. She says that she got the drugs mixed up. She said she got the drugs mixed up. And she took a drug that was banned, but she didn't do it on purpose, and she didn't do it intentionally. But the Tennis Federation said, hey, look, you're responsible for the stuff that goes into your body. That's not an us problem. That's a you problem. And they banned her for a very long time. And now she's back. And I think people are willing to forgive Maria Sharapova for it. I don't think from just the folks that I've talked to and the general response from the fans, which I think the media is making a bigger story of this than the fans are. I don't see any fans that are like, wow, Maria Sharapova, I can't believe they let that cheater back. We don't see her as a cheater. And I want to know what it is that causes us to see certain people as cheaters and other people as not cheaters. Right? Because the question has been raised. What if this was Serena Williams? And I'm not saying that this is race related. I think that this is body shape related, right? Like we do things with women who have non-conventional body shapes, right? Serena Williams has muscles. They are very visible. That's part of her body, right? And, you know, like, again, the reason that the ESPN did the body issue originally was to display a lot of these unconventional body shapes before, like, they just decided to jump the shark and just show us naked athletes all the time. And Serena was one, because Serena has a body type for a woman that is not largely celebrated, which is that she has a thick body type and she's also muscular, which that plays a part into it. That if you saw Serena Williams, if someone said, wow, Serena Williams got popped for performance-enhancing drugs, do you think that people are surprised? Or does that not confirm to some people, at least, why her body type is the way that it is? Even though some women are better at simply just putting on lots of muscle, more so than other women, right? Like, that could just be her body type. But we pick and choose where we are cynical with this stuff. And I think it's interesting because, here's why I don't think it's just a racial component, because there are some women that if you said, oh no, that person's on steroids, like, you'd absolutely have believed it. Ronda Rousey, at Ronda Rousey's peak, if Ronda Rousey got popped for performance-enhancing drugs, how surprised are you that that would have happened had that happened? I don't think you would have been that surprised. Why? Ronda Rousey, though a lot of people do find her attractive, has a body type for a woman that is not conventional. Right? She has very big biceps. She's strong. You look at Maria Sharapova, who is also strong, but Maria Sharapova is very tall. She's lean. She's lanky. The idea that Maria Sharapova took performance-enhancing drugs and didn't do so on purpose has everything to do with the shape and the body type of Maria Sharapova, which is more in line with the traditional feminine body type than not. So we extend to her an olive branch that if Maria Sharapova had biceps like Serena, you wouldn't have believed it. You wouldn't believe her. I don't think you'd give her the benefit of the doubt. I don't think you'd give her that chance. Right? Venus is more in line with traditional feminine body type, right? So, like, we are more likely to give, I think, Venus that pass, right? Plus, Venus has been sick and everything else. But, like, we're more likely to give Venus that pass than we are to Serena, right? And Serena's known for having a powerful serve. It's damn near unreturnable. And all of these things that play into it, and you're like, yeah, you see steroids, even though steroids are not about muscular and not muscular. People take steroids to recover faster. Lance Armstrong wasn't huge. Lance Armstrong was taking performance-enhancing drugs for recovery. Right? Like, you don't have to be huge to be on steroids. Major League Baseball popped D. Gordon for steroids. And the reason why we were all surprised is because you look at D. Gordon and, look, I'm not a big guy. I am 5'10", 180 some odd pounds, okay? I'm in that average dude ballpark. I could tackle D. Gordon and probably hurt him today. And D. Gordon is an athlete, and I am not an athlete. D. Gordon is like something like 5'8". He's a tiny guy. The possibility that D. Gordon would be on steroids, and it's not like D. Gordon's a guy that's ever been hitting home runs or anything like that. Like, D. Gordon being on steroids was the single most surprising fact about D. Gordon. Steroids are not just about size. They're not just about making you look big, but we're still stuck on that mindset. And so we look at Serena, we look at people like Ronda Rousey, and they've got those non-traditional body types. And I think this is the reason why people have this stuff with gymnasts too, because gymnasts, by the nature of what it is that gymnasts do, wind up being just extra muscular, right? They're short and they're very muscular usually. They have big arms, big legs. And so, yeah, you end up looking at gymnasts in a different way than you look at other athletes, especially female gymnasts, because they don't visually match that idea in your head of what a female body type is supposed to look like. And if anybody told you one of them was using performance-enhancing drugs, you'd be more likely to believe that than if Maria Sharapova were. We automatically gave Maria Sharapova the benefit of the doubt because she doesn't look like what we think a steroid user ought to look like. Right? Maria Sharapova, if she did not play tennis, could probably make a very good living as a model. She looks like a model, like a stereotype of a model at that, right? She's pretty, she's skinny, she's blonde, like she's got all the model things. And in fact, is also a model in conjunction with being a tennis player. But if she didn't play tennis, her life as a model would be fine. So when Maria Sharapova says, look, I didn't take performance-enhancing drugs on purpose, we absolutely believe her. And it's hard to believe anybody. We've gotten very cynical about performance-enhancing drugs. That when a guy like Giancarlo Stanton looks like he might even make it to 70 home runs, like you have to question the legitimacy of it. You have to question whether or not it's performance-enhancing drugs, right? When a guy like Aaron Judge just shows up and he's a kid, but he's just popping off, you have to question. Because those guys look like what we imagine a steroid user to look like. Just looking like Hercules. These guys are impossibly large, impossibly strong, and there's no way. Like, we almost can't believe that what it is that they look like physically is possible. And when you put that on a woman, it looks even more impossible to us, right? Like, the idea of accepting body types in America is something that we still struggle with greatly. We don't like things that look very different in this country. And that is in every which kind of way. We don't like things that look religiously different. We don't like people who just act very, very different from us. And we have an idea of what men are supposed to look like. We have an idea of what women are supposed to look like. And when people look and act differently than that, we struggle with that. And I'm saying is with Maria Sharapova checks all the boxes of what we think a woman should look like. So when Maria Sharapova says, no, I didn't take performance-enhancing drugs, we just automatically believe her. And then she's allowed to have that moment where she drops to the ground in tears after her time off. And I'm not minimizing Maria Sharapova's struggle in any particular kind of way. I'm saying we automatically cleared her. Now, I'm saying this as a guy, I also believe Maria Sharapova to be genuine. And I don't believe that Maria Sharapova cheated on purpose. And I do believe that the ban that she got from tennis was steep. Right? But it does give them the flexibility to continue to enforce that moving forward. It gives them the ability to be consistent. That if we were able to ban one of our biggest stars over this, then we'll ban you too. Be careful with these drugs. Right? Like, that's what an enforcing agency and enforcing body is supposed to do. And I'm saying I am, I suppose, glad in some way that Sharapova didn't get any beneficial treatment. I'm saying also with the evidence that we knew and all the stuff that we had, we didn't know whether or not she did it on purpose. But they hit her with the letter of the law. But we believe Sharapova's excuse because she checks all of the boxes of what we think a woman ought to look like. And I'm saying we would not give Serena the same benefit of the doubt because Serena does not check those boxes. Right? Like, Serena looks legitimately like the LeBron James of that sport, and you're just not going to check those boxes for her. She clearly stands out in a physical way. Like, if you're not even talking about the resume, which she does stand out far above the others because Serena Williams is legitimately one of the great tennis players to ever play tennis. But resume aside, Serena Williams physically looks like no other tennis player currently playing tennis. And Serena Williams, were she to be popped with performance-enhancing drugs, and she never has, by the way, despite many people accusing her and having absolutely no evidence. She has never been popped for it, but if she were, you wouldn't give her the same benefit of the doubt that you give Maria Sharapova because she does not look like what you think a woman ought to look like. It's unfair. It's absolutely unfair. But that's the point. Think about it. Think about it before you find yourself in a position of deciding based on these biases that you have. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. I want to talk about the efforts that are being made to raise money for the flooding in Houston, and one notable person who is not making an effort. Also, the Detroit Lions and the Cleveland Browns are picking two very different ways to escape NFL football purgatory. What do I mean? Next, on Clutch with Keon Rose.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
You've been in a wreck.
756-6400.
You've been wrongfully fired.
756-6400.
A turkey is suing you out of the blue.
756-6400.
Confused about a business startup?
756-6400.
That's the number for you. 756-6400. Right here, right now, Chattanooga. Call now. Top flight legal help awaits. Get biz advice now. Representation to fight for your right. What are you waiting for? That's 756-6400. Don't sit on your rights. You've got remedies. Turn your tragedy into cash. You've got the solution from estate planning all the way to probate. Act now. Top attorneys in Chattanooga are waiting to help you get relief. Act now. No out of pocket. You don't pay a dime until we win. So win with us.
756-6400.
Call now. Top flight legal help awaits. What are you waiting for? That's 756-6400. Turn your tragedy into cash. Act now. No out of pocket. You don't pay a dime until we win. So win with us.
756-6400.
756-6400.
I'm Thomas DeMoss, and we've got the cash. We will buy your house today. Need to sell your house? We want to buy your house, and we have the cash to do it. Call me now, 423-834-7321. That's 423-834-7321. We've been buying houses in the Chattanooga market for 10 years. We are local, and we can help. There's no obligations, only solutions. iBuyChattanoogaHouses.com. I'm Thomas DeMoss, and we've got the cash.
Does your business have enough clients? Are you confused about how to stand out in today's saturated social media market? Do you feel lost trying to navigate the maze of marketing channels which are necessary in today's marketplace? Are you fed up with spending your time and money on employees who don't perform and marketing strategies that don't produce? Then you need Cindy's Choice. Cindy will solve your marketing problems with their innovative shared marketing management concept that will allow your business to have the benefits of a full-time employee that is actually out building relationships in the community on behalf of your brand. Cindy's low monthly rate includes advertising, employee management, public relations, and creative marketing strategies that produce. Cindy can bring this all to you at a rate lower than most advertising campaigns and for much less than the cost of hiring a marketing employee. Cindy's Choice is your trusted source, and Cindy will manage it all for you.
Hi, I'm Cindy. I focus on the prospects so you can focus on the projects. Call me at 423-661-4445. That's 423-661-4445. So you can become Cindy's Choice.
WDLZ HD4 Ottawa, W224AZ Chattanooga, WSDG Sunny Daisy Chattanooga.
Harvey spreads misery beyond Houston.
Enough is enough. We need help.
And they'll need help for a long time.
We expect a many-year recovery in Texas.
This is the CBS World News Roundup Late Edition. I'm Dave Barrett.
And I'm Steve Futterman in Houston. Tropical Storm Harvey's destructive path moved east today, claiming new cities as victims. Hardest hit the city of Port Arthur with massive rainfall. Port Arthur Mayor Derek Freeman sounded the alarm this morning.
We have water all across the city, 5-6 feet deep in some places.
CBS News correspondent Michelle Miller is in nearby Orange, Texas, which was also hit.
Over here, the North Orange Baptist Church turned makeshift shelter as one of the last options for the entire town. 2 other shelters flooded out overnight. Nearly 400 are crowding here. The elderly, the sick, young families like Craig Bearfield. They woke up with water in their bedroom.
Well, I'm just happy I have my family here. And as long as we smile, we'll be okay. God got us.
Here in Houston, still reeling from days of torrential rain, there was sunshine today. In some areas in and around the city, floodwaters are beginning to recede, and some residents are returning. Here's CBS's Chris Van Cleve.
Maribel and Jose Garcia have taken the trip down Apache Lane to their Crosby, Texas house every day for 19 years. But today, it's in their neighbor's boat. This is the first time they've been back since Harvey hit. Inside, it's worse than they feared. A baby's bottle and food sit unfinished on the counter, a reminder of how quickly they got out.
Houston's mayor today announced the city will be back in business next week.
We're back to normal operations on Tuesday.
The death toll is now over 20. Today, police announced the discovery of a van that was swept away by floodwaters.
Our worst fears have been realized.
And Dave, the bodies of a family of 6 were found inside, 2 grandparents and 4 of their grandchildren.
21 now known dead from the storm and the aftermath. Promise today from Acting Homeland Security Secretary Elaine Duke.
The federal government is in this for the long haul. We will continue to support the people of Texas as long as it is necessary.
FEMA has so far provided 5 million meals to Texas. By this afternoon, the agency had approved more than 45,000 applications. This would cover uninsured expenses plus home repairs and costs for temporary housing. As for flood insurance, not many people have it. In Houston's Harris County, 25,000 fewer properties were covered compared to 5 years ago. East of Houston, power's out to the Arkema chemical plant in Crosby, Texas. Cooling systems out. Company's CEO says that plant could blow up in the next few days. And Houston's 2 airports are reopening, but on a limited basis. On Wall Street, the Dow gained 27. Now this.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans. Every day people ask me, Jay, did I miss out? Have the rates gone up? The answer is no. Rates are still low, and it's a perfect time to refinance your home, especially if your mortgage rate is higher than 4.25%. If you'd like to lower your interest rate and save thousands of dollars in interest without starting over on a new 30-year loan, a Quicken Loans Yorgage is what you're looking for. With our exclusive Yorgage, you can choose a term that works best for you, anywhere from 8 to 30 years. The rate today on an 8-year Yorgage is 3.25%, APR 3.75%. For 7 years in a row now, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation for customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. And for the 4th year in a row, they've also ranked us highest in the nation for mortgage servicing. Call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to quickenloans.com. That's 800-QUICKEN.
For J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSConsumerAccess.org, number 3030.
Tax reform. Stephen Portnoy says the president spoke on that today in Springfield, Missouri.
Ideally, arguing the U.S. has to become a more competitive place for business. The president said he'd like to see the corporate tax lowered to 15%.
Companies are going to move back into our country. Jobs are going to prosper.
Democrats say the GOP's tax reform proposals amount to a giveaway to the super rich. Mr. Trump called on Missouri's Democratic Senator Claire McCaskill to support the effort.
And if she doesn't do it for you, you have to vote her out of office.
McCaskill is up for re-election.
FDA approval has come for the first treatment to alter a cancer patient's blood cells. Researcher Dr. Stephen Grupp.
We're genetically reprogramming these T cells so they now can recognize and kill cancer cells, and we put those T cells back in the patient.
This could help fight childhood leukemia. You're listening
now to our reporter
to
in the
CBS
field.
World News.
We asked Ray at Ray's Plumbing what's important for homeowners to know.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's news now.
At the racetrack gas station on Battlefield Parkway in Ringgold, police say that a man burst in, ordered everyone out. He had a gun and then began taking money out of the cash register and barricaded himself inside the building. Bad news for the suspect, however. He was right near a SWAT team training area. They responded to the gas station immediately. After about an hour and a half of a standoff, the suspect came out of the gas station with his hands up and with no gun. The police say he does face a robbery charge. County Mayor Jim Coppinger made an announcement on the county courthouse steps on 10:30 a.m. that taxes would be going up in Chattanooga. The county will be raising property taxes to bring in funding for schools, a new sewage treatment plant, and an expanded workhouse. County Mayor Jim Coppinger says the time is now. A public hearing will be Wednesday, September the 6th at 8:30 a.m. at the County Commission meeting room at the county courthouse. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's fast forecast now. 72 degrees in Chattanooga as we finish up our workday. 77 is a high today and 68 the low. Use caution on your drive home as rain is expected to continue all through our day into tomorrow, with thunderstorms starting up tomorrow, continuing into Friday, with 77 for the high on Friday, 62 for the low. For our weekend, things are going to clear up quite a bit with temperatures getting back into the 80s. That's your fast forecast now.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Hello, Chattanooga. You're listening to AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Clutch with Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me today, making me just a small part of your day. You know that I appreciate each and every one of you. This is hour number 2 of the show. I was watching during the break, I was watching some Madden highlights. The game of Madden is a football video game, for those of you who do not know. And they make one every year, and every time they release it, they add new stuff to the game, which means, of course, that there are new glitches in the game as well. And it's stuff that affects gameplay, and it looks bad. And I don't know how they keep getting away with this stuff. You can't charge people $60 for a game that you did not finish making. I don't understand the point of buying a Madden game each and every single year. People who buy Madden every year, could you please let me know, what is the purpose of your game? No, I understand it's a football video game. I'm saying, what's the purpose of them releasing a version of this game every year, especially since every year that they release a version, like, they're so unfinished, right? Like, the Madden glitches are an annual thing, and I'm on Twitter all the time, and you start to see them right about now, right before the NFL season starts. What is the purpose of the game that they are making? What is the point? And really, this applies to all sports games. Why do they make one every single year? First off, again, it's usually not completed. There's usually a bunch of wacky, goofy glitches that make the game infuriating to play. And I understand they add a bunch of new modes and everything else, but we're connected to the internet now. When I was a kid and I was buying Madden, and I wasn't buying Madden every year. I was buying Madden about every other year or so. When I was a kid, though, if you wanted to get a new roster for the team, you had to buy the new game for the updated roster for the new league year. But now everything's online. So why would you ever want to buy a video game that costs you literally $60 a year for a product that is not finished by the time you buy it, and by the time that they update it and patch it and everything else? It's time for the new version of that game to come out, which you then turn around and buy again. What is the purpose of the game? Why is it so much money then if they're not going to give you a finished product? Why are there always so many glitches? Somebody who buys Madden each and every year, please tell me. What is the purpose of buying the newest Madden every year, other than to say you have the newest Madden? Which, to me, I'm not one of those people that just does stuff just to do it or just to say that I did it. I like to do stuff because I actually like doing the thing. Right? And there was just a point in my life where I stopped enjoying the Madden experience because I was paying $60 for the pleasure of essentially testing a video game into workability. And by the time that game was workable, they were charging me $60 for the next one. Just not a fan of this Madden situation. Right? Like, if you buy it every other year or every couple of years, I mean, sure. But you're buying Madden each and every single year. Those are the people that are keeping EA Sports alive, because I don't understand what else that company exists for, right? The basketball game that they make is terrible. So they pretty much just exist for Madden. And even that's not great. That hasn't been great. So I will wait till the next one comes out, and then I will buy this one for $20 later. Maybe. I haven't played a football game in a very long time. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240. And 92.7 FM. So the Detroit Lions have paid Matthew Stafford, the young man, well, I suppose not young anymore, but the man out of Georgia, right? Our time with Matthew Stafford as a Georgia Bulldog was a fun time, and he's been in the NFL, and I've been following Matthew Stafford's whole career because I just like the guy. He played in one of the all-time great mic'd up NFL games of all time, where he broke his clavicle and still finished the game, finished with that final throw. And you could hear him screaming into the mic as he tried to finish out that game, and they won the game in the fourth quarter. with Matthew Stafford. Look, to me, that showed a lot of heart and a lot of guts, and that was before I even moved to the South. I was just very, very big on Matt Stafford, and I've liked him his entire career. I like the way that he throws the ball, and statistically, I think he's a great quarterback as well. I always have Matthew Stafford on my fantasy football team as my backup quarterback. It's my strategy that I go into every year. Every year I draft Aaron Rodgers. Every year I draft Matthew Stafford. That part of my draft has not ever failed me. Statistically, you're going to get a lot out of Rodgers, and statistically, you're going to get a lot out of Stafford. That's not ever, ever, ever let me down. It's all the other stuff. But Stafford's been great. Now, the question is how good is Matthew Stafford, right? Is Matthew Stafford good enough to be the highest paid player in football history? No. But that's how these things work, right? Like, you're the highest paid player until the next guy is the highest paid player. And these leagues are making more and more money, and the cap is going up and up and up and up. And so, yeah, Matthew Stafford is currently, I think more accurately to say, the highest paid player in NFL history. The question is it worth it for the Lions to give that guy all that money? Because the extension that he signed was a 5-year, $127 million extension, and that is a lot of money for a guy that hasn't won a playoff game, right? And does not win a whole lot of games against winning teams. And I think that the general consensus is, yeah, like, you've got to pay him, okay? This sport is a quarterback-driven sport, and if you have a quarterback, you cannot let that guy walk away. You just can't, right? But where you put your money is, I think, a designation of what is actually important to you, right? Like, I know what's important to you if you let me look at your finances, which is the reason why you will not let me look at your finances. And, by the way, the reason I will not let you look at my finances. Because if you look at my finances and I look at your finances, you will find out what is important to us by where it is that our money actually goes on a given basis, right? So where your money goes typically is an indicator, whether you're a business, whether you're an individual, whomever. And it doesn't matter how old you are, right? Like, if you give an 8-year-old $1, you will know very quickly what is important to that 8-year-old based on what it is that they attempt to buy with that dollar. Where your money goes is what's important to you. And what Detroit is essentially saying, what the city of Detroit, what the Detroit Lions are saying is that Matthew Stafford is worth more to us than anything else on our team, right? That building a team around Matthew Stafford is not as important as Matthew Stafford. And that would be the one gripe that I would have with the Lions, right? Is that you look at Matthew Stafford, we have all of these questions about whether or not Matthew Stafford is good enough to make all of that money in a salary capped sport. But here's the thing that is important to know. Matthew Stafford has not ever had, I think, the help around him that other people have had. But if you pay Matthew Stafford this money, now you guarantee he will never have the help that other people have had, right? Like, he will never have another great receiver to throw the ball to. He had Calvin Johnson once. But once Calvin Johnson left, it's not like Matthew Stafford fell off the earth, right? And since he's had his new offensive coordinator in Jim Bob Cooter, Matthew Stafford has been statistically one of the top 8 quarterbacks in the league, right? Including that season where they went as a wild card, went 11-5 and made the playoffs. They have no defense to speak of. And even when they had Ndamukong Suh, they had a great defensive line, but they didn't have great linebacking. They didn't have a great secondary. This is all problematic. Also, no running back. The Lions have not had a running back since Matthew Stafford has been there. Reggie Bush running between the tackles is the best that they've had. Reggie Bush, who has been at the height of his NFL career, just okay. Just okay. So there's a little bit more here to Matthew Stafford making all of this money than that's just the going rate for a quarterback who's good, right? Like, we're not talking about great. We're not talking about a guy who's going to be an all-time great. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. It's a little early in his career to tell. But a guy who's just good. What you're essentially saying is here, no, we have the one piece that we know you need to have in this sport. You cannot operate without that piece in this sport. Very rarely, right? Like, the Denver Broncos were able to do it with old Peyton Manning, who was not good. The Ravens were able to do it with Trent Dilfer. But what you're essentially saying then is, like, okay, in order for us to afford to not sign our quarterback to all of this money, what we have to do is construct one of the greatest defenses of all time. Like when you look at the teams that have been able to win Super Bowls without good quarterbacks, or even go to Super Bowls without good quarterbacks, the list of that team, the list of those teams involve the greatest defenses of all times, right? Like we're talking about the 85 Bears are one of the great defenses in the history of football. The 2000 Ravens that won with Trent Dilfer are one of the greatest defenses in the history of football. But the Denver Broncos, when they won with old Peyton Manning, was one of the greatest defenses in the history of football. And look, I'm saying that either trade-off is difficult. To simply say that Matthew Stafford is not worth the money and that you should let him go or you should try and trade him simply to try and build up a team to escape NFL purgatory where your team is waffling at average because your quarterback is good, not great, and everybody else is just okay. Everybody else on your roster is just okay to maybe even terrible. I'm saying they're both the same place. If you don't build one of the great defenses of all time, how many teams have not had that franchise quarterback and have just been building this whole time and had great teams come and go with no quarterback to solidify it, right? Like my argument right now for that is the Houston Texans, who have finally gotten Deshaun Watson, but they were not any better or worse than the Lions this entire time, right? And they played a much weaker division. That they've had the defense, they've had weapons on offense, and nobody to throw the football to those weapons on offense. That it's a risk either way. And teams would rather take a risk in one guy than putting that risk across multiple people who you have to keep under contract for multiple years while you're trying to build a team and hopefully look for and maybe land a quarterback good enough to carry you and your now dominant team to wherever it is that you hope that they will go. That quarterback piece is just easier to do. And I don't think it's a guarantee that you get, like the Broncos had Jay Cutler originally, and they decided to trade Jay Cutler, who was powerfully average, and I mean average in every sense of the word. Before Jay Cutler returned back to football, Jay Cutler threw one more interception in his career than he threw touchdowns in his entire career. Like the guy's the definition of up, down, right? Had a lot of potential. The Broncos punted on that potential and used the picks to build a great team. That is one way to escape football purgatory. But if you have a quarterback and you try and catch lightning in a bottle, that is another way to escape NFL purgatory, right? And my argument for that is Eli Manning, a guy who we would not consider a quarterback above the level of a Matt Stafford, except that he won 2 Super Bowls. And he won 2 Super Bowls because his teams were equipped to win those Super Bowls. But we're paying Eli Manning like an elite level quarterback. And when Eli Manning won his second Super Bowl, he was being paid like an elite level quarterback. Right? You can get hot in the NFL. It's one of those irrational sports in that way. To the point where if you have a quarterback and you know that this is your franchise guy and you know that this is the guy that you want to build around, it just doesn't seem wise to let that guy walk out the door, even if it costs way too much money to keep him. And not everybody gets to be the Patriots, right? Where Tom Brady is accepting pay cuts to be there. Most cities, most teams, your guy is walking away from you. Okay? That's just the case. Like, not everybody gets to be New England, and not everyone gets to have Bill Belichick. Most cities deal with the fact that if we don't pay our quarterback, he walks. The Patriots live with the fact where they don't pay Tom Brady, and Tom Brady stays right there. I also think that Tom Brady does much better in endorsements than a lot of these other guys. Tom Brady does much better in endorsements than Stafford. Tom Brady does much better in endorsements than any of these young guys coming up, whether it be Andrew Luck, even though Andrew Luck does pretty well himself, whether it be Phillip Rivers, whether it be Drew Brees or any other quarterback that we would consider very well in this league. Tom Brady does, I think, better than all of those other guys, and also is married to a supermodel who makes more money than him, which I think allows them to lowball Tom Brady in a way that nobody else gets lowballed. Also, they drafted Tom Brady in the 6th round, which Tom Brady is incredibly grateful and indebted for that opportunity that he was given in a way that a lot of these guys that get drafted in the first round, second round, and third round are simply not. And if you don't pay them, they walk. And not everybody gets that luxury that the Patriots have. The Patriots are not doing some special thing with Brady that everybody else can't do. It's that Brady makes that possible, right? And that there is no saying that when the Patriots get together in a room and they replace Brady one day with Jimmy Garoppolo, that Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't say, hey, pay me more or I walk. There's no guarantee that Garoppolo is the same dude as Brady in that way. Also, I think you'd be a fool to walk away from Bill Belichick with his track record now. Like, there's just a bunch of things to factor in other than a win-loss record, right? Like, the thing that's being held over Stafford's head is that he hasn't won very many games against winning teams, but he's had one of the worst defenses in the league his entire career. He's had no running game his entire career. And yes, you have Calvin Johnson, but you still need a running game. Like, you still need a balanced offense, and he hasn't had one. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. I'm not saying that I know that Matthew Stafford is worth the money that he's being paid. But this idea that Matthew Stafford being paid all of this money is the single most preposterous thing that anybody has ever heard is insanity. And I would also argue that Matthew Stafford's not just being paid for the going rate of a quarterback. Matthew Stafford is being paid to be a quarterback in a city that is starved for a quarterback. He's being paid to be a superstar athlete in a city that is starved for superstar athletes, to be quite frank with you. There hasn't been many in Detroit. There haven't been very many. He's being paid to be all of these extra things. Plus, he works in the community as well. Like, he's being paid for more than just being quarterback. And I understand that the salary cap goes towards the football team, and maybe this should be purely a football decision, but he's being paid for the fan base, what they think of him, the fact that the fan base probably turns on you if you let that guy walk. He's being paid for all of those things, right? When Kobe Bryant was almost done with his NBA career, Kobe Bryant made $24 million over the last 2 years of his career, even though Kobe Bryant was not worth $24 million. But the Lakers didn't pay Kobe Bryant what he was worth on the open market. The Lakers paid Kobe Bryant what he was worth to them. And you can't forget this, that the Lions are not just paying Matthew Stafford what Matthew Stafford would be worth on the open market, which, by the way, is a lot. They're paying Matthew Stafford what Matthew Stafford is worth to the Detroit Lions. That includes as a quarterback and all the other parts that comes with being the quarterback of the Detroit Lions in a city like that, with the struggles that that city has. You can't overlook all of that stuff, too. You don't pay a guy what he's worth. You pay the guy what he's worth to you. If you thought he was worth less than that, then you would not have paid him that at all. Right? He struggled with injuries early on, but then he's been healthy the last, 6 years of his career? He's 29 years old. He is the face of that franchise. I mean, that's pretty much it. Now, coming up, we're going to talk about the Cleveland Browns, because the Cleveland Browns have basically done the exact opposite of this, where they are essentially letting people go who are stars, letting people go who are considered important, who are going to probably make a lot of money on the open market, and letting those people go in an attempt to escape football purgatory, which the Lions are also trying to do. But the Lions are trying to do it by doing it the way that everyone has always done it, which is that you find your franchise quarterback and you keep that guy. And you keep that guy through hell or high water. It doesn't matter what it is that happens with your team and how much harder it is for you to sign free agents and everything else. You keep that guy if he plays quarterback. You just do it, okay? You do it if you're the Raiders and you have Derek Carr. You do it if you're the Lions with Stafford. You do it with the Chargers and Rivers. You do it with the Giants and Manning. You do it with the Ravens and Flacco. If you have a guy that you think could be a franchise guy, you do it and you don't blink. Now, some of those are going to be obviously mistakes. I think the Flacco thing was a mistake. I don't think that Flacco was a franchise guy. Like, we were batting around the word and overusing the word elite a few years ago. Like, is this guy elite or is this guy not elite? But that's the thing. We don't have a good metric for what makes a guy elite. And very often, has the guy won a Super Bowl? Yes. Then that makes that guy elite. when in fact Joe Flacco cannot save a team by himself. He's not that caliber of quarterback, but I do think that Stafford is. He does need more help than what he's getting. But I'd like to see Matthew Stafford with a decent defense. And I'd like to see Matthew Stafford with a decent running game. And everybody knows you only need to hit on those once. Like Drew Brees has been statistically a monster for the New Orleans Saints. Statistically a monster. He hit on that once. That team had a great defense, and that team had a solid running game when Drew Brees and the Saints won the Super Bowl back in 2009. They had those things. And he was able to go out there and win a Super Bowl. And without those things, he hasn't been able to win one since, rather. Clutch with Keon Rose and AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Three, two, one.
Chattanooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's news now.
At the racetrack gas station on Battlefield Parkway in Ringgold, police say that a man burst in, ordered everyone out. He had a gun and then began taking money out of the cash register and barricaded himself inside the building. Bad news for the suspect, however. He was right near a SWAT team training area. They responded to the gas station immediately. After about an hour and a half of a standoff, the suspect came out of the gas station with his hands up and with no gun. The police say he does face a robbery charge. County Mayor Jim Coppinger made an announcement on the county courthouse steps on 10:30 a.m. that taxes would be going up in Chattanooga. The county will be raising property taxes to bring in funding for schools, a new sewage treatment plant, and an expanded workhouse. County Mayor Jim Coppinger says the time is now. A public hearing will be Wednesday, September the 6th at 8:30 a.m. at the County Commission meeting room at the county courthouse. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's fast forecast now. 72 degrees in Chattanooga as we finish up our workday. 77 is the high today and 68 the low. Use caution on your drive home as rain is expected to continue all through our day into tomorrow, with thunderstorms starting up tomorrow, continuing into Friday, with 77 for the high on Friday, 62 for the low. For our weekend, things are going to clear up quite a bit with temperatures getting back into the 80s. That's your fast forecast now.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Hi, this is Chrissy. And this is Summer of Summer Cares. There are too many homeless veterans in Chattanooga. Please help us in our Shoebox for Veterans campaign. You can fill a shoebox with hand warmers, hand sanitizers, hand wipes, cough drops, razors, shaving cream, toothbrush, toothpaste, soap, shampoo, deodorant, snacks, socks, gloves, and even a small blanket.
And make sure you drop your shoeboxes or your shoebox items off at Nooga Radio Studio on Hickson Pike across from Bojangles below Goss Insurance or Alpine Crest Elementary School.
Please join us at the Community Kitchen in Chattanooga on November 10th from 11 to 12:30 and help us distribute these care packages to the homeless veterans of Chattanooga. No veteran should ever go homeless.
Hi, this is Eric Pelton. Taxes, accounting, business advice. I've got a neat brochure, 12 ways to improve your business profits. Come on by for a free consultation and we'll give you a copy. E.J. Pelton Company, 332-3339.
When my brother and I opened our first Jets Pizza, we believed if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300 plus stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and one topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jets.
When you shop online for a weapon, you avoid the sales tax. But now you can buy local at Shooter Supply, and you'll do just as well, if not better. Here's how. 10% off of ammo and accessories, or 20% off of the handgun permit class, or you can get 20% off the range membership. You deduct the taxes online, and at Shooters, you do even better. And let Shooter's consignment program turn that rifle into cold, hard cash. Shooter Supply, Hickson. Shooters Supply, Hickson.
I have the best steak selection in town. The name of the business is Don's Meat Shop, and I'm Donnie Raines. Just ask for Donnie. I make over 20 different types of sausages. Most of them are great for grilling. We have the best selection, best quality. We have the hard-to-find items. Don's Meat Shop.
This is Thomas DeMoss with Keller Williams Realty. I am a realtor in Chattanooga. We list and sell homes, work with buyers, work with home sellers. I have been involved in real estate for over 10 years. My background is as a real estate investor. That is what I bring to the table, is that real estate investor mindset. My job is to help you sell your house for the most money, employing the best marketing strategy and walking you through what can be a rather stressful process. So we are encouraging people who are on the fence or even thought about selling their house to give us a call. There's no obligation. We're just here to kind of have a conversation, let people know what the process is like, what the market is like, what values they can expect to receive. We work with buyers as well. I also have a buyer's agent that works exclusively with my buyers because we want to give our clients as much attention as we can. My cell phone number is 423-364-0028. Our website is northriverpropertygroup.com. That's northriverpropertygroup.com. We'd love for you guys to call us.
Hi, I'm David Crockett, and I'm here with David Tulis, and we're having a little discussion over who's the number one Nooga centrist. If you want to keep up with free market ideas, then read Nooganomics.com. David Tulis, the blogger with the biggest pen.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree. Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM, and 95.3 HD4. News, talk, sports. Nooga Radio.
So there's more than one way to skin a cat. What's with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM? There's more than one way to do something. And all sports, especially sports with the salary cap, have the purgatory problem. Right? And it doesn't matter what sport it is. As long as it's a team sport, you've got the purgatory problem, where you are either whether it's basketball, hockey, football, baseball, I don't care. You've got the purgatory problem. What's the purgatory problem? The purgatory problem is when you are not good enough to be a championship contender, but you're not bad enough either. So you don't get draft picks. You don't get good draft picks. You don't get high draft picks. You don't stink, but you're not good. So you're just average, right? Like you've built yourself a very average team, and there's nowhere to go from there because your draft picks are always going to be average draft picks. And people don't want to come to you in free agency because you're average. I mean, let's face it, big-time free agents that want a chance to win a championship go to teams that are already on the verge of winning a championship. You don't go to average teams. You just don't, right? I say this as a guy. I'm a Washington Wizards fan. That team is in basketball purgatory if ever there was a basketball purgatory, right? They are going to be roughly the third or fourth best team in the Eastern Conference, and yet they're not a title contender. But by being the third or fourth best team in the Eastern Conference, which is a terrible conference of basketball as well, doesn't ensure that you're going to get a draft pick worth anything at all. And it's insane and somewhat absurd. Right? Like it doesn't mean that you're going to get any of those things. And you could be that way for the next 8, 9, 10 years is the purgatory of that sport. And the NFL has been really good on selling us that there is no purgatory in the NFL because anybody has a chance to win, right? We've been sold very well and very hard, and this is why Roger Goodell is making all the money that he's making. We've been sold very well and very hard on any given Sunday, and we have bought it and we have eaten it up. That everybody believes that their team's got a chance to make the playoffs, and everybody believes that their team has a chance to win a championship, right? Even if you are a fan of the Jets, you could talk yourself into somehow, well, you know what? Near the end of the season, we could be 6-6. We might get in with a wild card. Like you could really talk yourself into all of that stuff. And fans do it every single year because it's fun to do it. And because every now and then a team actually proves that correct. We have been sold on the idea that there is no football purgatory, but there very much is, right? Now, you look at a team like the Detroit Lions, that's football purgatory. This is a team that the last few years has made the playoffs. They have made the playoffs as a wild card, right? Because they can't seem to get the number one overall. They can't ever seem to outdo Aaron Rodgers in the pack. They've made it as a wild card. They have been a team that legitimately, have you ever considered them to be a contender? Have they actually ever stood a chance in your mind? Because I haven't seen it. I don't believe that to be the case. And yet, here they are with the decision to make. How do you escape football purgatory? Do you let your quarterback go? Do you try and trade him for more pieces and say, hey, we're going to take the risk on trying to find another quarterback, even though that's been difficult for everyone to do in this league? Or do you keep the quarterback and hope that you hit on enough key players at other skill positions that you give yourself an opportunity to go on some kind of a magical run? Because those are the two options that you have to escape where the Detroit Lions are. Those are the two options that you have. And then you look at the Cleveland Browns with the other way of escaping football purgatory, which the Browns are not in football purgatory, by the way. The Browns are in football hell. But you look at the way that the Browns are operating their team as of these last couple of seasons when they changed general managers, and what you end up seeing is a team that is in football hell and is trying to skip football purgatory altogether, right? They're not even trying to waste time building little by little. The Browns are going to do this the way that the 76ers decided to do this in the NBA, which is that we are just going to acquire assets and we are not going to allow people to give us gigantic cap hits. We are not going to be bogged down by stupid bad contracts. We are going to try and lighten our load, and we're going to try and do these things through trades. And if we can't get trades, then that's fine. That's fine. If we can't do trades, that's fine. We're just going to release a guy that's going to be a pretty big cap hit, right? So this morning, the Browns released Joe Hayden, who is easily, just based on talent, one of the top two corners in the league, though based on, health history, not so much, because he's played, 14 games in the last 2 years? That's not good enough. It's not good enough. He hasn't been healthy. And I understand why the Browns let him go. The cap hit for how much value they're getting from a guy that can't stay healthy, I get it. And they're doing this the math way. They're doing this the Moneyball way. In fact, their general manager is not Billy Beane, but the assistant to Billy Beane, the Moneyball guy who helped to build the Oakland Athletics. And so the Browns have been acquiring draft picks and letting players go. And there are some players on that team, by the way, that are frustrated. Linebacker DeQuell Jackson said that he doesn't understand what the team is doing. Are they trying to get draft picks or are they playing to win football games? And I understand that the frustration, if you are a football player, of watching a team try and stockpile draft picks instead of trying to win, especially in that sport where the average career length is so low that essentially what you would be doing on a football team like that is trying to build up picks for the future, is planting seeds for trees that you will never actually see, right? That's where you are. You're going to plant trees and know that they're going to bloom for the next generation. They're not going to bloom for you. And that's frustrating as an NFL player. You want a chance to win in your career. You don't care about the team after you're gone, right? That doesn't do anything for you. So I get the frustration there. But it is amazing. I am actually amazed at what it is that the Cleveland Browns have managed to do here, because the Cleveland Browns have 13 picks in next year's NFL drafts. That's right, 13 picks. To the point where the Browns actually have 2 drafts in 1 draft, okay? Let me give you the countdown now of the 2018 Cleveland Brown picks, in which the Cleveland Browns have 2 first-rounders. I just lost the spot there. In which the Cleveland Browns have 2 first-rounders. They have 3 second-rounders, a third-rounder, 2 fourth-rounders, 2 fifth-rounders, 2 sixth-rounders, and a 7th-rounder. They essentially have 2 picks in every single round. The Cleveland Browns are going to be able to draft good young talent moving into the future, and all of these guys are going to be incredibly cheap to pay on a lot of these rookie contracts if they can get any of these players to pan out whatsoever. And they have so many more chances than every other team in the league. So yes, if it seems as though the Browns are not playing for now, but they're playing for the future, that's because they are. They are attempting to get out of football hell, but they do not want to make a pit stop in football purgatory. They're not trying to do it. They are trying to go even further beyond that and just go straight to being a contender. That's where they want to be. And they're not going to mess around with paying players a whole lot of money, right? And if you remember Moneyball, I didn't see the movie, but I did read the book. If you remember in Moneyball, a whole lot of that had to do with the fact that players weren't being paid very much. And you were using data and analytics to try and figure out what's the cheapest team you could build that was still competitive. And I think that the Browns might be setting a blueprint that the rest of the league is going to have to try and copy eventually, because the only team that I've seen operate like that is the New England Patriots, where they just sort of stockpile draft picks and draft guys, and it's a bunch of dudes you've never heard of, and you wonder why it is that their cap hit is always so low. A lot of it has to do is that they got a bunch of guys on their rookie contracts, and then the guys like the winning, and then they take the hometown discounts. That's essentially what it is. And the Browns are trying to do that, but that's the harder way of doing it. It's harder to sell your fan base on, we are not going to keep this player that you all like. It's harder to sell your fan base on, we are trading everybody. We are releasing anybody who is going to be even a marginally detrimental cap hit to us. That Joe Hayden is the guy that was well-loved in the community in Cleveland, that he did a whole lot with special needs kids and the Special Olympics in that city. That he is a guy that's also a very talented football player that's fun to watch on Sunday and well-liked by the fans, a fan favorite. And they just went ahead and released the guy because mathematically he's too big of a cap hit. Like, what we're looking at is a situation where the only other way to get out of football purgatory is for football teams to be, and this might seem a little bit ridiculous, but it's true, for football teams to be even more emotionless and even more cutthroat than they already are being. That a guy, we're already used to guys being released because they got injured and they're not as good as they used to be. And we got used to guys being released for a myriad of reasons that seem quite frankly kind of petty. But now the reasons could get even pettier, which is that simply the value that we have on you doesn't match what we're paying you on this team, so we'll see you later. But like, it would be better to have the cap space and not have you than to have you and you not give us a value. Right? Like, football is going to become even more ruthless if this experiment with the Browns works out. That's where we're headed with this, because that's the only other way to do this. Either you stockpile picks and attempt to cheaply build a team, because again, salary cap sport means that you kind of have to pay guys a little bit below their market value. Nah, I mean, sometimes not even a little bit, a lot of it below their market value, in order to build a very good team. That the reason why the Denver Broncos are good and going to remain good is because they refuse to pay quarterbacks, and they think that, okay, well, we won with old Peyton Manning. We're going to see if we can win with Trevor Siemian, and we're going to see if we can win with Paxton Lynch, and see where it goes with us. Right? We couldn't do it with Osweiler. We let him walk. Like, they're not worried about their next quarterback. And we're going to have two diverging schools of thought on this, because quarterbacks also tend to be the face of your franchise. And at what point does letting a quarterback go wind up being the popular move? When will fans accept not re-signing a Matthew Stafford if it means making him the highest paid player in all of football? At what point will we not accept that? When will we? Is it when we see success with the Browns? Like, if the Browns are successful doing the thing that they're doing, do teams stop backing up the Brinks truck for quarterbacks? If there's a proven way, because the Cleveland Browns are easily the most snake-bitten team, have the reputation for being poorly run. If there is a way for that team, as terrible as they have been for decades, for that team to wind up being some kind of contender, right? Or even a playoff team. Like, if the Browns are consistently making the playoffs, you'll have to imagine and believe that as some kind of miracle, the way that that organization has been run for years. 4 years. Is this the great equalizer for quarterbacks, where we start reeling in on quarterbacks because, well, we can pay everybody else, right? Like, at what point do we no longer see the big Joe Flacco, big Andrew Luck, big Derek Carr, big Matthew Stafford contracts, and that's actually cool with fans, right? Because I'm seeing it happen with the Redskins. The Redskins, by the way, pure incompetence. I am not giving them credit for doing anything intelligent, but rather that they bumbled and bungled their way into something actually rather ingenious, which is that Kirk Cousins, we all know Kirk Cousins is not worth the long-term deal that Kirk Cousins seeks. And Kirk Cousins will be the highest paid player in NFL history when he gets paid next year. And he'll be commanding something in the open market. If he plays a good season this season, he'll be commanding something in the open market of $30 million a season. And I don't know if he's worth that. And the reason why he hasn't been paid by the Redskins yet is because he's not worth that. And he's not even worth a little under that. He's not worth less than that even. That's the reason why the two sides haven't come together, because he isn't worth what he's asking for. But he's a decent quarterback in the NFL, and it seems to me that decent is all it takes to get the big payday. But the Redskins have been paying a guy 1 year on a 1 year deal. Yeah, he's a giant cap hit this season, but he won't be a giant cap hit next season, right? And if they're smart, they would have been looking for a quarterback this entire time, and I hope that maybe they have. But they may have bungled their way into somewhere ingenious. But also, this is an organization that noticeably and notoriously does not care about their fans. They don't care what we think at all. That team does not care what their fans think. And so they do wildly unpopular things all the time. And here's another example of them botching something, except that they've botched their way into something possibly ingenious, which is that you don't give a long-term massive deal to a guy that doesn't deserve a long-term massive deal. And they are not hamstrung by Kirk Cousins. If Kirk Cousins does not come back to the Redskins next year, they can still build. They can still do something with this. And also, by the way, I should point out, Kirk Cousins and Matthew Stafford, almost identical statistically. It's fairly horrifying. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. So I want to shift gears here a little bit over to the city of Houston. The city of Houston has been devastated by Hurricane Harvey, massive flooding all over the place. People are losing their homes. And our thoughts and prayers go to the people of Houston, but also our money should go to the people of Houston. So if you want to donate, you can always go to the Red Cross website to donate to the people of Houston there, as well as HoustonFoodBank.org. That's another place that you can go. But I want to talk about something that's very interesting to me. It's sort of a non-sports story, but it kind of is, which is that Joel Osteen, who we all know, he's a pastor of that mega church in Dallas, is actually from Houston. And the people of Houston need places to stay, they need food to eat, and they need water. And Joel Osteen had not actually opened up the doors of his church for the people who are being evacuated from that city because the city did not make him, is his reason. It had not occurred to him to do that. And I'm not going to accuse Joel Osteen of anything, right? Because I don't know Joel Osteen. I don't know him personally. I don't even really know him beyond his sermons. I don't. But when Mark Cuban of the Dallas Mavericks and Jerry Jones of the Dallas Cowboys and the Dallas Stars and all of the sports teams step up, and you've got individuals like Odell Beckham Jr., who plays for the New York Giants, is not even from Houston, and James Harden and J.J. Watt, who was raised at this point, when last I checked, $5 million for the relief efforts in Houston. The person who is last to the scene of helping others cannot be the Christian pastor, right? Like, can we not all agree that the optics on that look bad? That Joel Osteen is in no way required to open up the doors of his church, but that he should have. And that if it didn't occur to him, that it's awful that it didn't occur to him, right? Like, this is a tragedy. This is a national tragedy. Like, many people have lost their homes. Joel Osteen, well, the city didn't tell me to open up my church, so I didn't open up church. What I'm saying is the sports organizations and the athletes cannot beat you, the church, to the punch. And a lot of this does have to do with that whole megachurch lifestyle. That megachurches do not necessarily care about the people, right? And I don't necessarily know what local churches are doing on the ground. But I will say this, local churches are better about this stuff than mega churches are. But for you to not open your doors when you have the biggest building and the biggest doors looks wrong and smacks of insincerity. especially when you consider that you've got athletes donating left and right. You've got The Rock. You've got Kevin Hart. There's people that don't live there. You live in that state. You have to know how bad it's being for people. You cannot let the sports organizations beat you to the punch on this. And this is not just a Joel Osteen thing, by the way. If you are a person who has a church and you preach on TV, so if you're Bill Hagee or Joel Osteen or Rick Warren, where are you right now? Right? Like that. People need you. You have enough money. You're buying all of these jets. You're preaching a prosperity gospel. People got hit with a flood, with a gigantic flood. Homes are lost. We haven't even gotten to the cleanup part of this. We have average people, everyday people out there on the roads being heroes, getting their boats, rescuing their neighbors, working through the night, the response crews. Even FEMA was there on time. Even FEMA was there on time. All of those crews are there. Where are you? J.J. Watt, whose most notable skill on this earth is hitting people, has raised $5 million. Where are you? Right? Like, part of me is like, this looks bad and it feels bad because it is bad. The church can't get beat to that stuff. Right? Like, that doesn't seem right. And you can't, get up on a stage and preach to people about the love of Jesus when you are not the first person extending it. Right? Now, if you're worried, well, people who are being evacuated are going to come into your church and mess up your building and all of that stuff, again, I would like to point out that all the sports stadiums have not seemed to care about this as much as you. And also, really, people have lost their homes, and that's what you're worried about. Because I can't imagine any other reason why it is that you wouldn't have opened your doors. That's about the best one I can think of. And if that's it, I'm disappointed. I am incredibly disappointed. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. And also about Hurricane Harvey. There was a rumor going around that Floyd Mayweather donated $200 million to the flood relief in Houston. That is, in fact, not true. Floyd Mayweather has not done this. According to Snopes.com, the site that reported that was not the Houston Chronicle, the official newspaper of Houston, but in fact, a website called HoustonChronicle-TV.com, which is the sketchier one. And also in that group of fake news. They just posted that story out there. I'm not going to lie. I did doubt it initially because I was like, that does not sound like Floyd. But I do think it is interesting that my first thought was, wow, that does not sound like Floyd. But what if Floyd had done that? Then would it have been fair to immediately judge that is nothing at all like Floyd Mayweather? Because we have the idea and the image of our minds already that Floyd Mayweather is not a good person. And Floyd Mayweather has done a lot of things to warrant the idea that Floyd Mayweather is not a good person. But I would like to point out that people are more complicated than just good person, bad person. That I would like people not to walk up to me and ask me if I am a good person or a bad person. Because how am I supposed to answer that question? Do I answer that question with all the good stuff I've done or with all the bad stuff that I've done? And I've done quite a bit of both, I think, in my life. Which one do I answer with? People are more complicated than that. And I think that when you reach a certain level of fame, whether in sports, politics, music, movies, or whatever, there's a certain level of one-dimensionality that we apply to you, and we don't back off from it. People have multiple sides and layers. And while Floyd Mayweather did not actually donate any money, not just $200 million, but any money that we know of to the hurricane relief in Houston, I think it was very unfair. The idea that, like, I heard that Floyd Mayweather may have donated money, and I thought to myself, the very, very first thought that popped into my mind was, wow, that doesn't sound like Floyd at all. Gonna have to go ahead and get that one substantiated. I don't know if Floyd is the kind of guy to donate that kind of money. Because I see Floyd as a one-dimensional guy. We're all guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. Right? Like, name a pop star or celebrity that you hate. Why do you hate that person? You realize that person has brothers and sisters and a mama? Do you know that? Are you aware of this? Do you even care? We've got to stop doing this thing that we do, not just in sports, but with celebrity, where we just one-dimensionalize everyone. You don't like it when people do it to you. Don't go around doing it to everybody else, and don't do it to famous people just because they're famous, right? Just because they have money does not make it okay to go around one-dimensionalizing anybody, whether that person is Floyd Mayweather or anybody else. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Thank you for joining me today, making me just a small part of your day. You know that I appreciate each and every one of you. The roads are still wet out there. I do think we are actually expecting a little bit more rain, so just go ahead and be safe out there if you absolutely can. And look, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay clutch, and I'll see you 48 hours.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
You've been in a wreck.
756